Hi, I'm delighted to be here with two fabulous, we'll soon discover why it's that they're fabulous people. I'm so pleased to be here with Angie Greaves.
Hello, Rasheed.
And many people are going to know your voice.
Yes.
Because we've heard you on radio stations, including Magic FM.
Yes, yeah.
So it's great to see you. And it's great to see also Theresa, Fowler, author of Feel Like, How to Stop Being Fat. And you've both got remarkable stories. And I'm really just keen to chat to you a little bit about your lives, your work, and your journeys and so on. And the common link is, as well as radio journalist and so on, Angie, you are the person behind Feeling Fab.
Indeed.
Which went, and I'm so excited about that. I'm just trying to think, where should we start? Well, actually, I'm going to start off kind of intuitively with this thing about feeling fab. Because lots of people, I guess that's in a way a common link, isn't it? That a lot of the time people don't feel fab.
Absolutely.
And there's so much pressure to look like this and look like that and so on. And maybe, Angie, I'm going to start off with you. Tell me a little bit about your story, and I'm fascinated about the journey, how you got into radio, and so tell us just a little bit about your life story, just in a minute or so, your background for people who don't know you.
Okay, well, I started off in secretarial in radio, and the mission was to save enough money to go to teacher training college.
And so did you know from when you were a young kid that radio was what you're passionate about? Because it's the kind of thing that people dream about, but you wouldn't necessarily think that's going to be a career path.
No, never dreamt about it. Used to mess around at home with a cassette, play literally cassette, and play songs and talk over them, but never really thought about radio as a career.
Right.
Used to mess around in the language labs at school.
Yeah.
Should have been saying "Je veux parler vous," but I was there. Oh yeah, I'm in America, and I'm, but it never dawned on me that really that's where I was going to be.
Right.
And it was only at Capital Radio, and we're going back to the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I went in there purely to stay for a year to get some money.
Was this on the secretarial admin side?
Yeah. And I just thought, right, after a year, I'll have enough money to go to teacher training college, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a school teacher. Mm-hmm. But I found 2 years later, I was still there. And I thought, okay, something's going on here. Then I was asked to do a voiceover. Right. And it just progressed from there.
Wow, and then that's interesting, because I think that your background, I was just learning, Theresa, was in journalism.
Yeah.
So you were a journalist. Did you know that you wanted to be a journalist?
No, I thought I was going to be a physiotherapist.
Right.
That's when I went to study at university, and sort of had an epiphany one day walking down the hospital ward, realising that was more of a vocation. Right. And I wanted fun. Right. I was only 21. I was really into the music scene over here in the UK.
And again, I realised the thing again here. Then there's this music thing, because you were just saying that you're a music journalist, so you love music. Yeah. And then part of the journalism, had you written previously? Or
no, not at all.
Wow.
I just kept applying for jobs until I got one and ended up getting my dream job. Basically.
What was that dream?
That was as production editor on an international musician in the recording world. So it wasn't just a smash hit type music magazine, it was actually a meaty, magazine for music.
I think that for lots of people listening to this, it's really wonderful how you can sometimes, be it by chance or by, drive, do things that you love doing. I mean, I think that's really interesting, isn't it? My background is a personal media background. I'm just keen to find out, because I know you both had interesting kind of turning points or growth points in your life and so on, a little bit about that. So, Angie, going back to yourself with radio, so you were at Capital Radio.
Yeah.
How did then that journey to become a DJ, presenter, emerge? So I would imagine that so many people would want to be in that field, and I can't think of that many even still. There aren't, that I guess it's changing, but I would imagine that when you started, there weren't as many black faces or
Greg Edwards.
Yeah, I remember. Well, I'm too young, but I caught myself out. Yeah, I used to listen to that as a kid. Yeah.
Greg Edwards.
Yes.
Chris Forbes.
Right.
On the reggae side, Steve Barnard, Tony Williams. I just, when I was in the studio, it was like being like a duck in water. I just felt so at home.
So from that early days when you were in Capital thing and going in there and thinking you just really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then when did you touched on the thing about how you've been asked to do a couple of voiceovers and so on. When did that moment come where people either that you said to yourself, actually, I want to have a go at presenting my own show, or when people said to you, Angie, would you like to present? Because
I can tell you exactly when it was. I was going to Barbados. My brother in Barbados told the local radio station, Liberty, that his sister worked at Capital Radio and was coming over for 3 weeks. So they said, let's give her a shot. Didn't tell them I was in admin. So I went over there thinking, what are you going to do? And I thought, you know, if you're going to mess up, best place to mess up in the Caribbean. But I came back having done 3 weeks of shows, and I went, do you know what? This is it. I can do this. I'm going to do this.
Right. And since, I mean, we'll talk a bit about that, but I mean, it's been a wonderful career in radio. I mean, it's been a wonderfully rich career. So I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to find out, you know, so, from your journey, you managed to get, so again, there's this journalist, this media theme, and you started off thinking about physiotherapy, and then what happened was that journalism, and you decided you love music, and then journalism, and getting this dream job. What then next happened? Did you because then there's been an extraordinary career change. What happened along that journey? Did you enjoy media? Did you then, or what happened? Where did the changes come in?
Yeah, once I got to about the age of 30, because I was always sort of that.
Right. So you were singing?
I was backing singer.
You're a backing singer, yes. Wonderful. Well, there you've got to be able to really sing, because I used to be a singer to be a backing singer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you've got to really be able to sing.
Absolutely, but you know, you get to that point where it's like, you know, I'm a bit old for this now. We're not going to be, you know, mega stars, and so.
And did you want to be when you were doing that?
When I was a lot younger, yeah. When I was in my mid-20s, definitely.
So was the writing about music? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Was it the next? Or was it?
Yeah, it was kind of a stepping stone to credibility. But you know, it didn't happen. So, but I did still enjoy journalism at the time, and so I went to work in computer magazines, and then I went into financial press because it was something I didn't know about, like the idea of learning. But you know, as it happens, you know, journalists drink a lot, smoke a lot, and that's how I got bigger and bigger.
Right. And so that's an interesting one. We'll come back to then about the book. So when you say you got bigger and bigger and bigger, so did it happen kind of gradually and partly just because of lifestyle?
It happened gradually because of lifestyle and stress and yeah. And
how big did you get?
£100 heavier than I am now.
And what's that? I'm old-fashioned stone.
Yeah, over 17 stone.
Over 17 stone.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a little transformation.
Yeah. My father died from pancreatic cancer at 67. Having been diabetic for years and years, and I had just been diagnosed diabetic, and I thought, I can't live the rest of my life being ill, because he was in and out of hospital at least 2 or 3 times a year.
And that must have been a very scary moment.
Absolutely. It was a big thing.
We'll come back and talk about the book and then the transformation. So actually, again, working in media, and you'll recognise lots of this, because it's a tough, challenging environment. All the stuff to do, all around entertainment. It's tough, it's challenging, it's demanding, it's competitive. So when you came back from the Caribbean, your radio career took off. Tell us a little bit about how that unfolded and how it developed, and how you managed to continue to, to have a career.
Yeah. When I got back from Barbados, I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. And it fell kind of in line with the 1990-1991 increase in radio licenses. So there were a lot more stations coming on the dial, and I thought, right, now is the time to jump. I went to Spectrum because that was a multicultural station. Then I moved on to Choice, and it was in being at Choice, and I can remember it clearly. I did one show in the evening because I was still doing admin work. I was temping, and then I was asked to cover the breakfast show, and I said at the time that I can't cover it because I'm working, blah blah blah, and they said, well, whatever you're doing, we'll pay it, but you've got to do the breakfast show because no one else can. And I just went on air and was totally honest. I said, look, I'm tired. I don't want to be here. And I was speaking.
You said that on air?
Yes. I was speaking in the most raw Bajan accent. I was, but they loved it. And that's when I realised people are looking for real people to listen to watch, to read about. And it was those realities that I think really got me going.
And it's really important because the person who one wakes up to listening to has such an impact on somebody's life.
Sets you up for the day.
And we just rely on, and it's a gift to be able to speak. Had you always had that ability to connect and converse and so on? Was that always there? Because it's a, and you see it as a real gift.
I see it now.
Right.
I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
When I was young and growing up, as Caribbean parents do, African parents do, you know, you sit around the table and what you've come to do is eat your dinner and not talk. And my mum always used to say to me, "More meant to eat, not to talk too much." And that was the line, and I can remember that daily at the dinner table.
So in a way, you had to learn to really value that thing whereby, you know, that talking thing where sometimes it's not seen as, you know, we should maybe be studying.
Yeah.
Right, and then so you talked about spectrum to choice.
Yeah.
And then where else did you work?
I left Choice and went to BBC London.
Wow.
Did some work at BBC Three Counties, and then I took time out to have my children.
Right.
Which is something you never do now. I mean,
Right.
I was totally oblivious in a way as to.
And you're saying that, but is that because for people to necessarily to be able to come, would you necessarily be able to come back in or to balance those things?
It's not that you wouldn't be able to come back in, but it would be more difficult.
Right.
And media, as I'm sure Theresa will tell you, it's so competitive.
Yeah.
And the minute you go out, you can bet your $1 before you've walked 10 paces down the street, there's someone else waiting to jump into your shoes.
Yeah.
So for me to take time out to have children, I mean, when I think about it now, it was a very brave thing to do.
Yeah.
But I suppose I always knew God had a place for me in the radio industry.
Wow. Okay, that's a good point. I mean, we'll come back to that then because it's now how you balance various things between radio and a new initiative. Theresa, we were just touching on a moment whereby a changing moment in your life in a completely different way. And that moment, realising that you become very ill, from the livestock you become very ill, and then to the point where you're set in stone and feeling very unwell. That must have been very debilitating, especially when you've been in such an out there, vibrant world, backing, singing, writing, and so on. Where were you at in yourself at that time?
I wasn't in a very good place at all. I was in a very bad relationship, which chipped away at my self-confidence gradually until I found myself kind of not knowing what to do with it.
Well, the jump is this extraordinary book, and feel like how to stop. And this is a real big issue, isn't it, in our society?
Absolutely.
I was just having a hot chocolate and some biscuits and all the rest of it, and there's so much written about and in the media about food, our relationship with food, growing obesity, challenges with that, sugar, numbers, what's in our food, and so on. And how did you? So you eventually you turned your skill of journalism to writing about it, but you also went on a huge transformation, as people can see now. How did you? Because I guess dealing with that, going through a transformation is one thing, and then coming out the other side and helping people with that is a completely different thing. So what did you do? How did you tackle it?
I tackled it in two ways to start with. One, I was introduced to a homeopath who was also really into nutrition, and she informed me about the food system and how it's quite corrupt actually. Promoting sugar, promoting genetically modified foods, basically promoting poisonous food products, which goes a long way to poisoning people.
It's interesting, I'm just reading that as you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, being fat is more than just feeling uncomfortable in your clothes. It's an acceptance of a larger physical state of being. Until the age of 40, Theresa Fowler had always been a fat girl. And that's really, these terms, is that fat as a child at school, fat as an adult, and partly because she believed that she was big boned. And so for lots of people, they're not only carrying around weight, but they're carrying the weight of pressure and all of this kind of stuff. And then, after suffering from recurring health problems, she found guidance that helped her to change her poor eating and lifestyle habits. And Theresa began losing weight in a big way. And so what was it that you discovered there? Because presumably you discovered that actually so many things that we're eating are just of no
value
nutritional benefit
whatsoever. No value whatsoever. You know, the thing is, like what I tell my clients, you know, nature provided what we need to eat.
Right.
Nature provided it for us.
So you're talking about the vegetables, the fruit,
even the meat, you know, the fish. Nature provided that, and it worked for millions of years. Right. And then all of a sudden, 50 years ago, food products in supermarkets and things in shiny boxes.
And you were just referring to the distinction between what you call food and food products.
Absolutely.
So food is those natural things that you can farm, you can fish, the fruit and all that stuff. That's natural, that doesn't really need that much, and often in some cases preparation.
You don't even have to count calories.
Right.
Because your body is satisfied with whatever you eat that nature gives you. Whereas food products are just, as they're designed, you know, these companies have scientists that sit in laboratories figuring out which taste formula works and how much sugar and salt. You know, it's a chemical process.
So presumably there's a huge learning curve that you went on personally as you lost. And how did you actually practically lose the weight? Was it just about eating differently? Was it about
70% is what you put in your mouth, 20% is exercise, and 10% is mindset. Definitely.
But I guess the mindset's got to be that right. It's got to be the right mindset in order to really believe in yourself and to turn around that thinking about yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, like the big bone thing, for instance, you know, my parents used to say we were big boned, and you know, the families were big boned because the entire family has an obesity problem. Clearly, we're not big boned.
Well, it's an extraordinary story, and I would imagine, you know, going back to you, Angie, that in your work in media, you've met lots of extraordinary people with extraordinary stories, and I know that you met them and you just need to find out about that in a while. But we were touching on before working radio, building this career, and then taking time out to have a family, which is important. But did you then, when you talk about time out, begin to fear about, do I want to go back? What's going to happen? Did you have those concerns about what you should next?
It just didn't dawn on me, Rasheed.
Right.
I would call someone up. People in this industry move around. So an engineer that I knew from Capital in the 80s had become the program controller of another radio station. So I would just ring up. Hi, it's Angie. Hi, Angie. How are you? I've just had 2 kids. If you want anybody to do some cover, I'm here.
What I like about you, I think the things that you're both doing, we've touched about this before about intuition. I get the feeling that you're somebody who's always worked intuitively, whether you know about it or not. There's a strong...
agree with whether I know about it or not.
Right.
It's only the outcome. When I look back and I think,
yeah. But it strikes me that it's a gift that you have. And in a way, it doesn't matter whether one is conscious of it or not. You seem to be plugged into that, and that you operate from that space. And I guess it's right, because in a way, to have the opportunities that you've had, it's very hard to, lots of people are fighting to get that who may never get it. It's the same thing in the music industry, isn't it? The people who want to be the lead singer and all that kind of stuff who want to happen. And so, in a way, has it felt like a blessing to have been able to do this? Has it felt like that?
Very much so. Even as I reach the big 5-0, I look back and I still know people from in my 20s and early 30s that are still trying to get into the music industry. Whether that's through writing songs, backing singer, being a musician, and I just look at how I've just chugged along, stopped, had kids, got back in. I mean, I even did work on LBC. I wasn't even really experienced in being a talk show host, but they need cover. So I really, really have been blessed.
But I know also that it's not always been easy. How do you balance? What have the challenges for you been in life? Has it been the challenge of, is it staying in that particular space? Is it doing that whilst we're in a challenging kind of environment? Because I know it must be very challenging. You know, it's a challenge. What have you personally found the challenges in life? You share it as much or little as you want to, but you know, because it's not, because people often think looking in, it's all plain sailing.
No, it isn't. It's very difficult when you grow as a person to bring what you're truly feeling to the table, because a brand is a brand, and it's not that I'm off-brand or it's not that I'm not right for that brand, but you have to think, especially in the corporate industry, you have a brand and there are certain things that go with that brand. And as you grow as a person, you might develop an interest that you might think is good for the brand, but overall it might not quite work. So you have to then accept and acknowledge that you're doing the work for the brand. And that's good.
And that's good.
That's good.
But then when there are the other dimensions to it, it's important that those are nourished in however that is, and that's important to
Absolutely,
recognise.
but I think that's the beauty of media now. You see, I'm old school media. We are old school media. TV, radio, print, theatre. You talk to media studies pupils now. TV, radio, print, theatre, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vine, Viber. Do you know what I mean? Snapchat, YouTube. It's all there. Well, we're there now. So you can still maintain a career in corporate. You can feed your soul along the side. I started feeling fab because I was just sitting down
feeling fab,
one
for those people
day.
who don't know, how would you describe feeling fabulous?
Okay, think positively and just believe that you are fabulous. So
there's web content, there's podcast content, there's articles.
I mean, even in meeting Theresa with her book, Feel Like to Feeling Fab, we felt that was two brands that would go together perfectly. So I created a document about 18 months ago called the Angie Greaves Dual Carriageway. And we have two cars. One is my radio car, which is always full, and it stops every month and it fills up. That's my salary. So every month we stop and we fill up, and it's great. What's in that car is purely for the radio industry. Now the other car on the other side of the carriageway has Angie's book club. Even though I do have the book club on magic, there are other books like Theresa's book. There's also now my awareness of the health and fitness industry. Once again, that's part of feeling like there's the family section, there's the entertainment section. So that's what's in the other car. Doesn't have as much fuel as the magic car, doesn't move as fast.
But it's also a new
But it's something new,
journey.
and it's being nurtured, and it's great.
And so, Theresa, how did you both meet, and how did you get involved in feeling fab?
We met through a mutual friend who organically said, "You two have to be here." We had no idea that it would fit this way. No idea.
But now you're contributing your expertise. Because tell people right now about how would you describe what you do now? How would you describe your work now?
My work now, I like to call myself the UK's only no diet, no calorie counting real food expert.
Yeah.
Because I teach women, especially those over 40, to live healthy lives. Because we only have this one body. And you have to respect it, and the older you get, the more important it is to have a healthier body.
And I'd imagine there's a big pressure, for example, our cultures, that some of the foodstuffs that we eat, whilst they do work for us on one level, we've got to be particularly kind of mindful for them because they're often a very carb-heavy diets. Sometimes there's a lot of cooking involved in that. So is that a huge challenge?
Yeah, it is a particular.
And we enjoy food. Well, that's not
I
that's a bad
enjoy
thing.
food. I probably eat more now
Right.
than I did when I was bigger. Because I used to exist on Diet Cola and I used to eat the wrong food.
Right.
Basically, you educate people with the substitutions they can make, and it's not difficult.
Being of African Caribbean origin, as you can imagine, the Sunday table is always laden with rice and peas, roast potatoes, macaroni cheese. Well, those things, especially in the white form, they break down sugar. So now my Sunday table is brown rice, sweet potato, and if we have macaroni cheese, it's with wholemeal pasta. And I actually didn't think I was going to be able to do it at all, but I test myself now. If I were to buy a portion of chips and say, right, I'm going to have one, I can't. There is an addiction.
Right.
Whereas if I make sweet potato chips, I eat them, I'm satisfied, and I enjoy them.
But it's also interesting, isn't it, this thing about when one becomes aware of where we're at and then that journey becomes so much easier. And I guess that's also what Feeling Fab is about.
Absolutely.
You know, helping people become aware. Because I think at one point when you were talking a little bit about Feeling Fab, I think that you were touching on how sometimes for people Feeling Fab starts at the very exterior kind of thing, isn't it? Okay, do I look good? How's my hair? And then sometimes that might invite people on the rest of the journey. Is that deliberate in terms of how it is that you've the content of Feeling Fab, that there are these different elements and the different ways in for people to consider what Feeling Fab is about?
Absolutely. So the health and fitness, it was imperative that Theresa was involved, and also Anna Fowler, and she's also on the website. The hair and beauty, because we do want to look good, don't we? But also, the hair, the beauty, the skincare, whilst it's great to endorse products, that also starts inside. I've found since eating less white products, my skin's changed. And I have found that.
So it's that bleaching and all that, and all the artificial, there's layer and layer on the artificial fit there stuff. Right, okay, so then that has an impact on to all of these things too.
When your nutrition is spot on, and your cells are spot on, and they're feeling absolutely brilliant, you feel, internally you feel amazing, and your beauty just shines through anyway.
What would be as we just come to a close now, tell me what would be your message to, I'm going to start off with you, Theresa, that for somebody who's perhaps on that journey where they're not feeling good at themselves, so they're feeling fat, they're actually at that feeling fat stage, and that might be physically or it might be emotionally. And of course there's so much pressure, particularly which really drives me crazy in our society, particularly on women, I should look, I should be, which doesn't help. What would you say are the first steps for somebody who's just feeling that they should feel differently, and perhaps they feel the pressure to be losing weight and so on? What would be your tips that they could go on this journey? What would be your first thoughts of things that that's going to do?
One step at a time. All it takes is to make that decision that you want to change. Because, I hear people say, oh, but I don't want to change, I want to keep eating my Maltese. But the problem is that where you are now isn't serving you.
Right. So it's got to want to change, because here we are, people can hear the noise, we're in a restaurant environment, people can be eating and so on. So actually, I've got to want whatever family, friends, whatever
anybody else is talking about, you have to want it.
And then what could then be the next step? And what kind of just simple things could they think about then?
Just simple things, just even get on Google and find out, you can, Google has so much going on for it, you can just find out, a healthy drink or green juice, find out about juicing, just take one step. And it is about baby steps. You can't make giant leaps in the space of a few days. Weight doesn't pile on in the space of a month.
And I guess it's also about knowing what kind of a person you are, and if you're the kind of person who feels quite driven yourself and self-respect, you can do that yourself. Or whether somebody is best to go to an expert like yourself and to go down on whatever side. Well, fantastic. And if people are trying to find your book, what's the best way to find?
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Feel like How to Stop Being Fat. Fantastic, Theresa Fowler. And people are trying to find you. What's the website? They'll see your articles.
Yes, it's www.feellikeshit.co.uk.
Wonderful. And Angie, for you, for people who are on this perhaps career journey, and they are wanting to be true to themselves, and maybe that because it's a funny one, isn't it? This thing about, maybe we haven't touched on, the thing, because some people also want they want the fame, they want the acclaim, because that's a huge kind of pressure. What's your advice there? Because it's not going to be for everybody. It's not necessarily going to be what it's always cracked up to be. What would you say for that person who's wanting to have a kind of career like you've had, or to really excel in their own particular career?
I think you have to have a mission, and you've got to believe in that mission. When I speak to media students and I say, right, why do you want to be in the media? I want to be famous. Why do you want to be famous? I want a car. I want to dress like Beyonce. I want to meet a man like. And I'm saying, well, hang on, is that your life mission? Do you know what I mean? You can earn probably more as a writer of songs than a performer. And you know, it's hard to also explain that to some kids.
Because sometimes I've been there when I was a singer from ego, me. And you've really got to find what it is that you're really about, what you're really passionate about, and that you can't not do.
Yeah. Well, you have to have a mission. It took me a while to realise it, but I do believe that my gift is communication. And I love what I do, and I will do it for as long as possible.
So it's finding that from that, so it might require that distilling, finding out what that actual mission actually is, what that thing about.
Yeah. And then you'll know where to position yourself in the media.
And then the work, tell us just very briefly about, presumably it's not going to be easy, and it's going to require work, there's going to be all sorts of challenges, and there's going to be that commitment required.
Well, there are going to be challenges. There is going to be competition. Do you have the commitment? Are you going to fall at the first hurdle? Or are you going to say, right, that's one hurdle I've learned, I'm going to push on through now. There may be many hurdles before you get to your goal. And even when you're on the way to the goal, always know that there's something else on the side that you can be doing just to replenish and feed yourself.
So maybe on that note then, and if people are trying to find you, they can find you on
AngieGreaves.com, feeling-fab.com, Angie Greaves Twitter, Facebook.
Right, and so maybe a last word from you both then on this thing about mission. If you had to sum up and verbalise the mission, and I'll start with you, Theresa. What's your mission? What's your mission about now? What's that life mission about?
My mission is to make sure that I leave the world in a healthier place. And that is my mission.
I like that. Healthier place works doubly on both. On that broader sense that we often talk that, but I guess in you it's very literal also. That people are healthier. And
people are healthier, people are happier. People are happier. People want to talk to each other and they don't gossip and they, you know.
Wonderful. Well, what a wonderful mission. And Angie, same question.
I think in terms of broadcasting, I've always, every day before I go on air, I just say, let me just touch someone's heart, someone's ears, make them smile, make them laugh. In terms of feeling fan, whoever goes to the website, I just hope there's something there. Whether it's a book recommendation, a food recommendation, a hair recommendation, you know, even some entertainment info. We don't do showbiz gossip. Gossip does not make people feel fabulous. So we do showbiz information. And I just hope that you log on and you just go away with something that makes you smile, makes you just feel good.
Well, I'm happy that people have done the same thing with this wonderful interview with two wonderful people. I can leave you both to smile and look at the camera. So I switch off my old-fashioned camera. And thank you. I just want to thank you both for the amazing work that you're doing, because you both really do make people feel fab. Personally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, in so many different ways. So thank you very much, and I just hope that people do take that time to get in touch, perhaps to read your book, to visit the website, and find something that might help them on their own journey. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Rasheed. Thank you.
Right.